Hello. The first thing you need to do is stop the terrorist attacks on 9/11. You'd think about stopping Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda, but the Grim Reaper encourages you to solve the situation on your own, with what resources you have. On September 11, 2001, at 8:45 a.m. on a clear Tuesday morning, an American Airlines Boeing 767 loaded with 20 gallons of jet fuel crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City, and you need to stop it. American Airlines Flight 77 circled over downtown Washington, D.C. before crashing into the west side of the Pentagon military headquarters at 9:45 a.m. A fourth California-bound plane, United Flight 93, was hijacked about 40 minutes after leaving Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey because the plane had been delayed in taking off. Passengers on board learned of events in New York and Washington via cell phone and airphone calls to the ground, knowing that the aircraft was not returning to an airport as the hijackers claimed. A group of passengers and flight attendants planned an insurrection. The passengers fought the four hijackers and are suspected to have attacked the cockpit with a fire extinguisher. The plane then flipped over and sped towards the ground at upwards of 500 miles per hour, crashing in a rural field near Shanksville in western Pennsylvania at 10:10 a.m. Die result 20, die result 20, die result 20, die result 20, die result 20. You prevent the terrorist attack on 9/11, gaining 50 quintillion XP. Next, you're going to stop the Columbine High School massacre. 2 students murdered 12 students and 1 teacher. Die result 4, die result 2, die result 10, die result 9, die result 9. You successfully prevent the school shooters, getting 125 quintillion XP. Diana, Princess of Wales, a member of the British royal family, died in a car crash in Paris, led to extensive public mourning and global media attention. Die result 8, die result 3, die result 1, die result 9, die result 7. You prevent the car crash, getting 975 quintillion XP. The Oklahoma City bombing, a domestic terrorist truck bombing perpetuated by 2 anti-government extremists with white supremacist terrorists. The bombing happened at 9:02 a.m. and killed at least 168 people and destroyed more than 1/3 of the building. Die result 4, die result 19, die result 19, die result 9, die result 5. You prevent the Oklahoma City bombing, gaining 1 sextillion XP. On February 28, 1993, at 4:20 a.m., the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms attempted to execute a search warrant relating to alleged sexual abuse charges and illegal weapons violations. The ATF attempted to breach the compound for approximately 2 hours until their ammunition ran low. On April 19, 1993, the FBI moved for a final siege of the compound. Die result 2, die result 2, die result 8, die result 4, die result 19. You resolve the situation, gaining 10 sextillion XP. Aileen Carol Warnose was an American serial killer and prostitute who murdered 7 men in Florida in 1989 and 1990 by shooting them at point-blank range. Warnose claimed that her victims had either raped or attempted to rape her while they were soliciting sex from her, and that all of the homicides were committed in self-defense. Richard Charles Mallory, age 51, November 30th, 1989, electronics store owner in Clearwater. Warno's first victim was a convicted rapist. Warno's claimed that she was sodomized and brutally beaten after being driven to an abandoned area for a sexual request. 2 days later, a Volusia County deputy sheriff found Mallory's abandoned vehicle. On December 13th, his body was found several miles away in a wooded area. He had been shot several times. Die result 11, die result 3, die result 19, die result 8, die result 9. You resolve the situation, getting 100 sextillion XP. Michael Player committed a total of 10 murders in the Los Angeles neighborhood of Skid Row, earning him the nickname the Skid Row Slayer. As victims, Player chose mostly homeless people who led a marginal existence, attacking them from behind and shooting them execution style. All of the killings were committed in the early hours of the day. The murders began on September 4th, 1986. Die result 9, die result 4, die result 19, die result 8, die result 6. You stop Michael Player, gaining 1 septillion XP. The Green River Killer, convicted of 48 separate murders. Wendy Lee Caulfield disappeared July 8, 1982. Die result 7, die result 8, die result 19, die result 8, die result 2. You stop the Green River Killer, gaining 10 septillion XP. Jonestown, the People's Temple Agricultural Project, better known by its informal name, Jonestown, was a remote settlement in Guyana established by the People's Temple, a San Francisco-based cult under the leadership of Jim Jones. On November 18th, 1978, a total of 909 people died at the settlement at the nearby airstrip in Port Kaitama, at the Temple Run building in Georgetown, Guyana's capital city. Die result 11, die result 18, die result 19, die result 7, die result 8. You stop the mass suicide, getting 100 septillion XP. Jeffrey Dahmer, an American serial killer and sex offender who committed the murder and dismemberment of 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991. Many of his later murders involved necrophilia and cannibalism. Dahmer committed his first murder in 1978, 3 weeks after his graduation. Die result 1, die result 18, die result 19, die result 7, die result 8. You stop Jeffrey Dahmer from picking up that hitchhiker, gaining 1 octillion XP. Ted Bundy, an American serial killer who kidnapped, raped, and murdered numerous young women and girls during the 1970s. January 4th, 1974, Karen Sparks. Die result 11, die result 18, die result 19, Die Result 7. Die Result 8. You stop Ted Bundy from assaulting Karen Sparks. You gain 10 octillion XP. John Wayne Gacy, an American serial killer and sex offender known as the Killer Clown, who assaulted and murdered at least 33 young men and boys. Gacy regularly performed at children's hospitals and charitable events as Pogo the Clown or Patches the Clown, personas he had devised. Gacy's first known murder occurred on January 3rd, 1972. Lured a 16-year-old named Timothy McCoy from Chicago's Greyhound bus terminal into his car. McCoy was traveling from Michigan to Omaha, Nebraska. Gacy took McCoy on a sightseeing tour of Chicago and then drove him to his home with the promise that he could spend the night and be driven back to the station in time to catch his bus. Die Result 1. Die Result 3. Die Result 19. Die Result 7. Die Result 2. You rescue Timothy McCoy and subdue and expose John Wayne Gacy. You gain 100 octillion XP. Mili Massacre. The Mili Massacre was the mass murder of unarmed South Vietnamese civilians by U.S. troops in Son Tin District, South Vietnam, on 16th March 1968, during the Vietnam War. Between 347 and 504 unarmed people were killed by U.S. Army soldiers from Company C, 1st Battalion, 20th Infantry Regiment, and Company B, 4th Battalion, 3rd Infantry Regiment, 11th Brigade. Die Result 16. Die Result 3. Die Result 19. Die Result 6. Die Result 8. You prevent the Mili Massacre, you get 1 nonillion XP. Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac murdered 5 known victims in the San Francisco Bay Area between December 1968 and October 1969. Operating in rural, urban, suburban settings, he targeted young couples and a lone male cab driver. Die Result 10. Die Result 12. Die Result 19. Die Result 6. Die Result 9. You catch the Zodiac Killer. You get 10 nonillion XP. JFK. John Fitzgerald Kennedy. The 35th President of the United States was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. You prevent the assassination of JFK and get 100 nonillion XP. Die Result 11. Die Result 2. Die Result 2. Die Result 6. Die Result 3. Al Capone, sometimes known by the nickname Scarface, was an American gangster and businessman who attained notoriety during the Prohibition era as the co-founder and boss of the Chicago outfit. His 7-year reign as a crime boss ended when he went to prison at the age of 33. Die Result 11. Die Result 12. Die Result 12. Die Result 16. Die Result 13. 1 decillion XP. WW2. Stop the Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear bombings. You go back to World War II and fight the Nazis, freeing the Jews from the Holocaust and fighting your way to Adolf Hitler, who's possessed by Mephisto. You square off against before having to retreat. Maybe you kill Hitler, but the archdemon is still too strong to defeat, and go farther back in time and stop Pearl Harbor. Die result 20. 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 10 decillion XP.